Geeks with beards, geeks with beards. Look who's here, geeks with beards. No need to fear, we're right here. We got beards, so listen clear. Geeks with beards, geeks with beards. Look who's here, geeks with beards. No need to fear, we're right here. I'm in your ear, so listen clear. No one else doing it like us. Also, we just might cuss, just cause. No, we ain't playing, and we're just saying, and we're making a podcast. It's cool.
No one's allowed to talk, is that it? You can't talk?
No, you intimidate them.
Good God, you're a woman.
Is it better to be feared or respected? And I say, is it too much to ask for both? I humbly present the Jericho.
Welcome, all you geeks out there, to a new episode of the Geeks with Beard podcast. I'm your host, Dan, with my co-host, Sean. Sean, what's been going on since our last episode, man?
A lot of cold.
A lot. Oh, it ain't that cold.
Oh, we got the single digits, man.
It's supposed to be 60 degrees today, so the devil's heat's coming back.
Thank goodness. But other than that, today I read Rogue: The Savage Land.
Oh, sweet.
So it takes place after Uncanny X-Men 247. So it's like a little story in between.
Okay.
She's being chased by a Marvel Girl, I guess, in that particular issue.
Okay.
Borrows powers from this girl who creates portals and it takes her to the Savage Land.
Bro, just taking stuff from people.
Hey, that's how you got to roll when you're being chased.
She didn't leave that girl in a coma, did you?
They didn't pay him back to her, so I don't know.
Well,
I said Marvel Girl, but it was Miss Marvel.
Miss Marvel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we hope not.
Yeah. Then pretty much she arrives fully dressed. You wouldn't be able to tell by the cover, but
Sheena Warrior Princess looking outfit going on there.
yeah, and it's basically just a small, like, I'm guessing it's going to be like a small arc, maybe 6 issues or something.
All right, cool.
And she meets up with Magneto, and they're going to go save this caveman-looking dude, Kazar.
Okay.
So yeah, they're going to go look for Kazar, and as you can tell, he's kind of beefy looking too.
Yeah, now he was the character I'm thinking about, right? In the 90s cartoon, the blonde kind of barbarian looking dude.
If it wasn't him, it's based off
or
him.
Tarzan looking guy or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay.
Yeah. And it's written by Tim Seeley.
Ooh, Mr. Seeley. We got returning back to the podcast there.
Yep. So that's been pretty good. Other than that, just another podcast I listen to is called Retrovaniacs.
Okay.
And they're doing a play-along of this game called The Lost Odyssey. So I've been kind of trying to fit time for that.
How are those video game podcasts? Are they just like you said, are they play-alongs or walkthroughs that you listen to as they do it? Or
that one I'm referring to is a they'll take 2 weeks, they'll play a game, they'll review it.
Oh, okay.
And they'll give like a little bit of backstory, and they'll talk about the sequels. It's one of the my inspirations for us doing what we're doing.
Hell yeah, dude.
So, but yeah.
Sweet.
What about you?
I see an ad there real quick for Ultimate X-Men Year 2. Is that something you're grabbing too?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I've been delving more and more.
I thought they were stepping away from the Ultimate stuff, but it looks like maybe it's...
Well, it says March 2025.
Interesting. Okay.
Peach Momoko.
Okay, cool.
What have you been up to?
Well, since last episode, I've read a couple of really good comics. I read the newest issue of Transformers and the newest issue of G.I. Joe. And Transformers was fun.
We're not going to talk about it.
Briefly, we continue the story of Starscream and the Combaticons coming to attack Soundwave and the rest of the Decepticons. The Constructicons have formed Devastator. They attack Optimus Prime and the Autobots because the last time they were trying to bring back another Autobot to life. Because Autobots are pretty low manpower right now. Cliff Jumper, he's off on Cybertron. He got kidnapped and taken to Cybertron and tortured by Shockwave. So they're getting ready to bring back Trailbreaker. They get attacked. This issue kind of picks up pretty much right after. The Constructicons, like I said, they form Devastator. They're attacking the Autobots. Starscream shows up with the Combaticons who merge into Bruticus. There's a big fight between combiners, which is always amazing in the Transformers lore. Love watching combiners fight each other. And it harkens back to a episode of the original G1 cartoon. So they're fighting. Starscream shows up. He's got Astro Train with him from the previous issue. Astro Train attacks Soundwave. Starscream shows up. Thundercracker's there. And he's asking Starscream, he's like, why are you doing this? Why are you attacking us, you know? And Starscream's like, he's like, you know, you think Soundwave is any better than I am? You think I'm crazy? Soundwave is just as crazy, if not crazier than I am. He helped me rip apart Skywarp to use on Teletrain 1. And Thundercracker's like, no, he would never do that. He's like, ask him. He's like, yeah, he would. And of course, Starscream is still connected to the Cobra Hiss tank and remote control. So he gets in a little tussle with Thundercracker. Thundercracker wrestles away the remote. Starscream's like, oh, wait, give that back to me. Thundercracker gives him that, bye Felicia look. hits the joystick. Starscream goes over the cliff.
That's so disrespectful.
And Thundercracker transforms. He jets off. Soundwave's like, where the hell you going? He don't say shit. Boom, he gone. So Thundercracker's fed up with everybody right now, goes on his own. Great issue. Real quick, basically, Optimus has a moment that he's had since Sparkplug got into the Matrix. And he's like, well, I've got to stop the Combiners from fighting or they're going to destroy this village. And they're near a dam. And Optimus is going to fire on them. Jazz says, dude, you can't do that. If you miss them and you hit the dam, it's going to flood that town and kill everybody. Optimus kind of grabs his head like he's just got something going on in his mind. Blasts anyway. Misses them. Hits the dam. Of course, it explodes. Here comes the flood. They are able to rescue the citizens because Trailbreaker shows up. Puts his force field around them. They're like, hey, Trailbreaker, you actually lived through the explosion. He's like, yeah, right at the last minute, I woke up. He's like, whoo, just barely made it. And they ask Prime's like, what's going on with you? And Optimus like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. So twice Optimus has had a fit and done some shit he normally wouldn't do. So
Optimus is an asshole.
And then we wrap up the issue, spoilers real quick. We wrap up the issue with finally seeing Megatron coming back. He's armless because Optimus has his arm and he has no eyes due to Cobra Law and Cobra Commander. And he takes, Laserbeak's flying through the air. Laserbeak finds him. He takes Laserbeak, kind of rewires Laserbeak's optics into his eye so he can see through Laserbeak. And basically he's like, take me to my troops. So next issue, if Megatron is going to put some whoop ass on somebody, I'm assuming, may take a couple issues, but that's where it ended. That's very exciting to see that happen. 16 issues, we finally get Megatron in the comic book. G.I. Joe was a good one. Real quick on that one. Unfortunately, like I said last episode, the character of Rock and Roll did die. You can't live through laser blasts.
What? He
did die. They have a new G.I. Joe member named Risk. I don't know if he's from the old school comics or not. He's new to me. Joins the team. Duke didn't really care for him too much. He's a little snooty. Him and Duke get into a fight. And Cobra Commander and Destro are kind of having a talk about some stuff. And you find out that Clutch, who we thought was dead the last issue, didn't die. He pretended to be a Viper so he could infiltrate Cobra headquarters. And he reports back to Duke and them that something big's getting ready to happen. Cobra's moving out. Something big's getting ready to happen. You guys need to be ready for it. And so that's kind of where that ends up in a way. And it ends with the introduction of the Crimson Guard twins, Zaymont and Tomax, which are really cool characters. So that comic's ramping up. It's only on issue 3, but that comic's ramping up too, so I'm very excited. But I think the best one was the Transformers. This time around was Transformers.
Poor Starscream.
Bless him. But like I told you, spoilers on, I try not to look ahead because sometimes they'll solicit like 3 issues down the line. But there's one cover for a future issue that shows him in front of Bruticus, and it shows him with his legs.
Yay!
So I'm assuming Starscream might get his legs back, from who, I don't know, but he gets his legs back apparently. But, so yeah, that's what I've been reading.
Tony Stark. Now you work for me. What are you building, Stark?
Your eyes are red. Your tears for your long-lost boss?
Tears of joy. I hate job hunting.
Yeah, vacation's over.
Welcome home, sir.
Boot up the scanner, will you? What happened over there?
I have my eyes open. I want to protect the people I put in harm's way.
Today we're going to jump into Tales of Suspense, number 39 from December of 1962 with a cover date of March of 1963. And it is the very first appearance of Iron Man in Marvel Comics. And real quick, because I was talking to Sean about this, reading about it, he did not get his own single book until 1968. He was in the Avengers for a little while, but apparently he stayed in Tales of Suspense through most of those 5 years until 68. And then, because basically by the time it got close to his single issue, it was just him and Captain America were basically the only characters that were in Tales of Suspense, supposedly, what I read about. Take Wikipedia with a grain of salt, but that's what I read.
That's fair.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and jump right into it here. We open with a secluded laboratory somewhere. Nowhere, it doesn't really give you anything specific. I'm assuming the United States. It does say the U.S. defense perimeter. I don't know where that's at. Okay. So right. Maybe it ain't in the United States. Maybe it's some other country. I don't know. But it's definitely U.S. owned land. And we're at a laboratory, and it happens to be the laboratory of Tony Stark, or Anthony Stark.
I was going to say, they don't refer to him as Tony.
No, it's Anthony.
He's Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony Stark. And he's showing off a new invention that he's got to a general, and that's all he's referred to as a general. We don't get any specific names or anything on that. He's showing a new invention, and they're little tiny transistors. And he's telling the general, he's like, look, with these little tiny transistors, I can make anything like super powered. It can do, 100 times what it normally would do. And his demonstration is he's got a magnet, and he's got this huge, I don't know how many feet thick, steel vault door. And he's got a little magnet pointed at it. And he said, all I got to do is hook my little transistor up to this magnet, and it'll pull that door right off the hinges. The general's like, bullshit. Basically. He's like, I don't believe you. There's no way that magnet's too small. There's no way he can do that. He said, that vault door is, super thick and strong and heavy. And Anthony's like, let me show you. So he hooks his little transistor up to it. He turns it on. Then you see the magnet start pulling the door, and sure enough, it starts bowing in the middle. Bowing some more, and then just boom, rips it right off the hinges. And the general's like, well, damn it, all right. I believe you now, Mr. Stark, I believe you. Tony looks at him, he said, yep. He said, now with these transistors on the military's weapons, he said, it will solve your problem in Vietnam. And I don't think I need to say this, but I will, because it's 2025. This is been reprinted in its entirety from 1962, so some wordage was used back then because this was during the early years of the Vietnam War, so take that, however you want to as you listen to this episode. But he does say it will take care of your red problem in Vietnam, which basically communism, I'm assuming, is what it's referring
absolutely.
to. The general's really happy about that because he thinks, hey, new technology, and like you said, at this time, in the creation of Stark and Iron Man, Stark and Stark Enterprises is just basically he's like a warmonger. He just makes munitions for the military, basically. And that's what this transistor is for, to help the military in their weapons. We get a little flashback because Stan Lee and them, they want to give you a little backstory on Tony, just briefly. You get like 3 or 4 panels. And it basically reads, he's a rich playboy. And all these ladies are saying, oh, he's the dreamiest thing this side of Rock Hudson. If only they knew about Rock Hudson. But, and, it shows little pictures of him on the beach. He's got girls just hanging off his arms, and, he's at these parties, and you see the wealth he's got, the cars, the suits he wears, and everything, So it's just giving you a little taste of what he is, that he's wealthy. We jump to South Vietnam in the jungle, and we meet a character by the name of Wong Chu. And he is described as the Red Guerrilla Tyrant. And I'm assuming it would be probably the North Korean army, or North Vietnamese army, I'm assuming.
Yeah, that would be correct.
If my history serves me, I believe it was that.
Yeah.
The bad guys in Vietnam, we'll say. And he is having a type of wrestling match in this village. And you find out that in this village, he had just conquered it, or taken it over, basically. And I guess he probably, take slaves and whatever he can take out of it, to further his army. And he's got a wrestling match going on. And he basically says, if there's anybody in this village who thinks that they're strong enough and big enough to defeat me in this wrestling match, I'll let your village go free. I'll leave it alone. And so, of course, you have several of the men in the village take him on in the wrestling match, and unfortunately, he overpowers every one of them. None of them are strong enough to take him out. And he actually fights fairly, he doesn't cheat. He actually wrestles them fairly, takes them down, So, unfortunately, that village, it's going to stay under his control. And then we cut to the outskirts of the jungle, and then you see Tony, and he's with the military. And basically the military's like, look, Mr. Stark, I don't really think it's really safe for you to be here. And he's like, look, I have to be here with you guys. What if my technology breaks down? None of you know how to do it. He's basically like, y'all ain't smart enough. Y'all don't know how to fix my transistors. They break down. He's like, I have to be here. He said, that way, if they break down, I'm here to fix them. That way you're not left out in the cold. You could die, if my stuff doesn't work. So he basically, you don't see it, but he basically has affixed his little transistors to various weaponry that the soldiers have, mortars, other heavy machinery. And the general tells him, he's like, he said, thanks to your, transistors, he says, like our heavy weaponry, our mortars, he said, they don't weigh any more than a flashlight. And I'm like, okay, so they superpower them, but they also lighten them somehow. Maybe, is it like, one would be like a magnetic field or something maybe to lighten the load? I don't see how it would
possibly
create, how it would affect the mass. I don't know how that would work. But that's what the general says. And he said, there's no way we could carry these weapons through the jungle without your tiny little inventions on them. He said, but it's way too heavy. He said, but hey, look, we carry them just like flashlights now. It's no problem. So they, they're going through the jungle and everything, and they get into a fight with, I'm assuming it's Wong Chu's people, his soldiers. They get into a fight, and they fight them back. They defeat them, run them back for that little short battle, and we see Tony walking with a soldier through the jungle after the fight. Unfortunately, Tony doesn't look down, like you always should if you're in a jungle, and he accidentally trips a booby trap, a little tripwire that's going across the path there. He trips it, and it explodes. I'm assuming it kills the soldier. You never see him again. And it wounds Tony. It mortally wounds Tony. And this is like in the movies and various other iterations. This is how he gets the shrapnel close to his heart. That will ultimately kill him if he can't keep it from entering his heart. So we cut to him. He's laying on the ground, probably just minutes later. And he's discovered by some of Wong Chu's men. And he's taken back to Wong Chu's headquarters. And they don't really know who he is. They just know that he's a Yankee, as they call Americans. And as they find out, they do some research. They find out that he's a famous Yankee weapons inventor, who has much shrapnel near his heart. Probably he's got about a week left to live. That's what one of Wong Chu's guys tells him. And Wong Chu's like, well, if he's this big inventor and he makes a lot of weapons for the United States, I'm going to trick him into helping me make some weapons in the week that he's got to live. And basically one of his soldiers is like, well, how are you going to do that? I'm going to lie to him. I'm going to tell him, you help make me weapons, I'll save your life. I'll get that shrapnel out of your body. Which he does tell Tony that. And Tony, you see a little thought bubble, and Tony's got a little inner monologue, and he's like, I know he's lying.
Yeah.
I know he's lying. There's no way he has the technology or the ability to remove the shrapnel out of my heart. If he had, he'd have did it, and I probably wouldn't be here now, or I would already be a slave or whatever.
It's cool they kept him smart, like, as a character like that.
Oh, for sure, yeah. That's what I was wondering, because, I've never read this. I've only read more modern Iron Man. And I was afraid that they might make him just, I'm a playboy, I'm a rich guy, I'm stupid. No, actually, he's very, very smart, just like they portray him.
Very street smart, too.
Definitely. So, yeah, he's thinking to himself, he's like, yeah, Wong Chu's lying. He's not going to save my life. I know better. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the time that he's allowing me to make weapons for him to make something to save my life. Because I've got to do something with this shrapnel. I've got to find a way to keep it from entering my heart. And he said, I realize I've only got a certain amount of time left to live. And he said, it's a short amount of time. So on the second day, before this, Wong Chu walks him into this room, cave, whatever. And there's all kinds of scrap metal, scrap iron, and everything else in there. And he says, hey, This should be all that you should need to make weapons for me. Get to work. So he leaves Tony alone. And on the second day, Tony's making his life-saving invention. And don't really, we know, but at this time, we don't know what he's doing. And we hear Wong Chu coming. And Wong Chu enters with one of his soldiers and an elderly man. Not really old, but he's a little bit older than everybody else. And he looks rough. He's probably been there for a while. He's been a prisoner. He's got some raggedy clothes on. And we find out that it is Professor Jensen. And apparently, we don't know how long Wong Chu's had him, but he's had him apparently a prisoner for a while, I guess. And he's thrown in the room with Tony. And Wong Chu tells him, he's like, look, he said, Jensen, he's going to help you build my weapons. He's a very smart professor like you are. So he leaves. Tony looks up and he's like, I know who you are. He's like, you're Professor Jensen. He's like, I've read all your books. So I guess that's where his know-how, his technological know-how came from, I guess, because Jensen was a famous physicist. One of the greatest physicists of the world, according to Tony.
So he's probably one of his inspirations.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely one of his inspirations. And at first, Tony doesn't know if he can trust him to tell him what he's doing, but he ultimately realizes, like, I've got to. He's like, I've got mere days left to live, so I've got to trust Jensen and tell him what I'm doing. So he does. He tells Jensen, hey, I'm constructing this device to save my life because I've got this shrapnel that's coming toward my heart. I've got maybe 2-3 days left to live. He said, I need your help. So Jensen does help him. And Jensen looks at him. He's like, what are you making? He's like, well, what are you going to do? Make an Iron Man suit? And and Tony kind of looks at him basically. He's like, yeah. And I'm going to make something so we can get the hell out of here. He's like, I'm not staying here. He's like, because you think he's going to let us live if I made weapons for him? No. And it's true. I mean, that was Wong Chu's plan. He makes him weapons and he just lets him die. So, which, in a way that's kind of stupid because if Tony did make him weapons, you think Wong Chu would be like, well, shit, I can keep this guy around. He can keep making me weapons. Mm-hmm. Because how many weapons do you think Tony's going to be able to make him in, say, 3-4 days' time?
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't make sense. That was dumb on Wong Chu's part. But anyway. So Jensen does start helping him build the suit. And Tony starts feeling the effects of the shrapnel getting close to his heart. He starts getting weaker and starting to get a little bit harder to breathe. And Jensen notices this. And Jensen says, look, and he got the chest plate, and he gives it to Tony. He said, look, he said, here, he said, put this on. He said, you've got to put the suit on now. He said, it's complete. He said, only thing we got to do is we've got to turn the transistors on, and we got to power the suit up. He said, but get it put on now, because he notices, Tony almost collapsed on the floor, because the shrapnel's just so close to his heart that it's affecting his breathing and everything. He's probably only got hours left to live, I was guessing. So Jensen helps him put the suit on. And he's laying on this table. But unfortunately, it's not an instantaneous power up. It takes a few minutes for the transistors to build up power for the suit. So Jensen's thinking to himself, he's like, and I guess they can hear Wong Chu coming. And Jensen's thinking to himself, he's like, look, I've got to buy time for Tony. He said, if Wong Chu comes in here and sees this, he's going to kill us both instantly. So Jensen runs out of the door. He just busts right through the door and starts running down the hallway. To buy Tony some time, and you can hear him. Tony can hear him outside that he's running. He's kind of hollering, getting Wong Chu and his soldiers' attention. So he'll chase him, and they do. They chase Jensen down the hallway, and unfortunately, they kill Jensen. You hear a bam. They shoot him dead. You don't see it. It's not in the frame of the comic whatsoever. You just see the big word "bam" come across, and Tony says to himself, he said they killed Jensen, a way better man and a better hero than I could ever be. He's like, I will avenge it. I will avenge you, Jensen, for what they've done. And at that time, the suit powers up. Tony gets up to try to get out of there. And basically, he's having to relearn how to walk almost like a baby in the suit. I would assume what the transistors did for the military's weapons, it's also doing for the suit to make it light enough for him to move in, because I don't know how much iron he's using, but for a full body suit, that's something that would have to be like impossible to walk around in. Oh yeah. So I'm guessing the transistors are doing the same thing, making it more lightweight so he can move in it. So he's having to relearn how to walk. He stumbles a little bit here and there. Surprisingly, Wong Chu doesn't hear this. He stumbles a little bit. I don't know if there's any lapse in time. I don't really think so. I think it's just, Tony's like, look, I've got to learn this. I've got to get up. I've got to do it now. I don't have time to fool around. So he does. He finally learns how to walk. He kind of gets his balance back and everything. He's like, I'm not going to be another victim of the Reds. It's not going to happen. So he finally gets his balance back, and and I thought this was funny. I mentioned this to you. I thought this was funny. He basically affixes suction cups to his hands, and I guess he leaps, or maybe he flies up to the ceiling, and basically sticks there out of sight.
I mean, Bond was really popular at this time, so it makes sense for him to have kind of gadgets.
Yeah. I don't know if the first movie would have been out, but surely the novels would have been out by then. Yeah. Of course. I think the movies were like 65. But yeah, definitely. Spy stuff was a big thing.
Spy stuff in general.
For sure, yeah. So he affixed suction cups to the hands of the Iron Man suit, and he gets up to the ceiling to hide out of the sight of Wong Chu. Basically, he's trying to make Wong Chu believe that he's escaped. Even though, you think Wong Chu would have seen a big iron suit guy going down the hallway. Apparently not. Mm-hmm. So Wong Chu comes in, and just as Tony didn't look down, Wong Chu doesn't look up, which is I think is a trope in comics and TV shows and stuff. The villains never look up. So he doesn't look up, and he tells one of his soldiers, he's like, "Oh, the Yankees escaped. We've got to find him. We can't let him get away. He's not building any weapons for me at all. We've got to catch him." So they run out. Tony drops back down from the ceiling, and just happens to be this real bright blue trench coat and hat. And it made me think of The Thing, how The Thing would always wear like a trench coat and hat in the comics and stuff. And he puts the coat on, he puts the hat on. I'm like, what are you thinking, dude? You think you're just going to just walk right out of this fucking cave?
I mean, they were still doing it in the 90s with the Ninja Turtles, so.
But dude, you're in Vietnam in a jungle. That suit's going to kind of stand out, I think.
Just the sound alone.
Clunk,
clunk, clunk.
And first of all, where the hell did the suit come from? Well, now, it couldn't have been Tony's, because there's no way it would have fit over that suit. That suit was huge. Anyway.
Plot hole.
Yeah, anyway. It was just funny. It made me think of the Thing from Fantastic Four. Yeah. So he puts the suit on. He walks out. Wong Chu's out there doing another wrestling match. And he's like, is there nobody out here that can defeat me? I'm bored. There's nobody that's a challenge for Wong Chu. He hears a voice off in the distance, and he says, "What about me? How about you take me on?" He turns around, it's Tony in the Iron Man suit, in the trench coat and hat. And Wong Chu's like, "You're not human. You're some kind of machine. You're some kind of robot." Tony takes the trench coat off. He takes the hat off. And Wong Chu's kind of stunned there for a second. But Wong Chu's like, fine. He's like, hell with it, we'll try it. So they get into a tussle, they get into a fight. All of his soldiers is watching. Tony takes care of some of the soldiers, and he ultimately takes care of Wong Chu. He defeats him in the battle. And Wong Chu runs away from him. And he kind of goes up to this little tower where there's this big loudspeaker. And he's going to basically call out over the loudspeaker to more soldiers to come help him defeat Iron Man. And Tony's like, I can't allow that to happen. I've got to interfere, I've got to put some interference into this loudspeaker. And I thought this was funny. So he takes another transistor, and he puts it into the Iron Man suit, kind of into his arm or his hand section, and he calls it the top hat transistor. And if you look at the picture, there's a little bitty top hat built on that little bitty transistor that he puts in his suit.
Now, I'm not an electrician, but I don't know if that's legit.
I mean, throw a little bit of cuteness and humor in there, I guess, Stanley. I don't know. But I thought that was so funny that it actually had a little top hat on that transistor.
That was funny, yeah.
So he does that, and by doing that, he's able to basically put interference and cancel out what Wong Chu's trying to say over the loudspeaker. Basically, it's just fuzz, just static. That's all you can hear. So he runs up the tower to the stairs, and Wong Chu just starts tossing like filing cabinets at him and everything, trying to stop him. And he actually does knock Tony down, basically knocks him off balance, I guess. And he runs out of the big tower where the loudspeaker was, trying to get away from him, because I guess he's legit. He's scared. He's never seen anything like this before. He didn't know what the hell's going on.
Oh, yeah.
Even though I guess Tony didn't announce who he was, I guess he still didn't believe it, maybe. So he's running away from Iron Man. And Iron Man, he looks, and he's like, huh. And he sees this big S building. It just has a big word on it, says ammo. And it's like just a big ammo warehouse, basically. And so Tony's like, huh. So he takes his Iron Man suit, and he shoots out a stream of oil from the wrist of it. I'm like,
Yeah, more gadget stuff.
Sure, okay. So he shoots a stream of oil from the suit, and he shoots a stream long enough that it goes from him to the ammo warehouse. And we'll say, I don't know, 100 yards away, maybe. Not very far, you know. And then a little torch pops out of the suit. Damn, Tony, you had a few days, man. You equipped this thing with a lot. And he takes the torch. He lights the trail of oil. And it starts flaming up. And it trails. And Wong Chu is just running. He's not paying. Again, you don't look down. Look down and look up, people. He doesn't look down, and the trail of fire basically goes beside of him. And just as Wong Chu's getting right up next to the ammo warehouse, or the little ammo building, the fire gets there, and kaboom! Blows up the ammo place. Assume, and I found out later that it's not, but at this moment, you assume killing Wong Chu in the process. I read that supposedly later on they made it to where no, he didn't die. He was just severely burned and injured. But at this moment, he's dead, as far as we know. And Tony stands there for a moment, kind of surveying what he's done, and basically thinking to himself, you know, I was able to avenge Jensen, and I took out this threat. You know, only one, you know, it's a small threat of the Vietnam situation, but it's a threat, a big threat, I guess. And it shows him walking away, basically saying, you know, what adventures lie in the future for the Iron Man. And basically it says only Anthony Stark knows what lies ahead for the future of the Iron Man. And that's how it wraps up, basically. It's sweet, short and sweet, but it's a really good origin story, I thought.
Well, the way these comics were designed, they were like samplers almost, like just multiple stories. They just put whatever they want to in them. Yeah,
I was reading there was a lot of, as far as the Tales of Suspense goes, and I don't know how long it ran for because this was the 39th issue, there was a lot of sci-fi, mystery, I don't remember what else it said there was in there, and he was just one of those that was introduced in there.
Yeah.
And I think they said toward the tail end of the Tales of Suspense book, they kind of pulled more of the sci-fi stuff out of it or whatever. I think, I could be wrong about this, but they pulled some elements out of it to where basically it was more of just a kind of a straight hero book where it was mainly stories with him and Captain America in it, supposedly.
That makes sense. You figure if it's on the 39th issue, it would probably start in the mid to late 50s, right?
That's what I would assume.
Science and all that kind of stuff was like really popular at the time, science fiction and all that, so that wouldn't make sense why it started out that way.
True, because I was reading, apparently during the 60s time, Marvel's distributors, whoever they were at the time, allowed them to have a few more monthly titles, so I think that also contributed to Iron Man getting a monthly book. I also read that where he was part of the Avengers, that it got a little difficult for some of the writers to do a team book and kind of separate the individual stories, I guess maybe the Tales of Suspense stuff and whatever, that they kind of slowly started pulling the guys out of the Avengers books, started pulling Tony out, started pulling Cap out, and I guess that's what led them, which granted, Captain America had his book way back in 1940.
Yeah.
You know, but Tony, I guess that's kind of what led to get him his individual comic in the 68 like that. But yeah, so that was the Tales of Suspense, the origin of Iron Man. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I loved it. I thought it was really good. I've never read it before. No. Beautifully reprinted, like I said, in its full original format. Yeah. It was like 25 pages without ads, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, and it's cool that even in the reprint they kept all the original ads and everything.
Yeah, even on the back of the cover, there's like an ad or whatever too for something. I forgot what it was now. So I like that, but I really do. I enjoyed it. And I found out too, I was reading about this, and I should have known this, but I didn't, that I guess either in reprints or something that Marvel had to change the suit from the gray as we see here originally to gold. It made it easier for them, I guess, color-wise and printing-wise to do a brighter color than it is to do that.
I think they did that with the Hulk too. if I remember right.
That would make sense.
The Hulk and maybe Beast as well, but
that would make sense. Yeah.
I will say, as far as like some of the backstory to it, we talked about this off air, but Stan Lee wanted to make a character because obviously the Vietnam War was on everybody's mind.
Yeah, it was early years of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and most people were getting to the point where they were tired of it. He's like, you know what? I'm gonna make a guy that's like pro-war, makes weapons. I'm gonna make people like him, and he did.
He did. Till this day, one of the most popular characters in the Marvel Comics history, I think.
And he said, like, the original run of Iron Man, he was most popular with the ladies.
Understandable.
Because, you know, he's very charismatic and...
Well, he based his look on Errol Flynn.
Yeah.
Which was a very handsome man.
Yes.
In the 40s and 50s, and you know, and of course he based his... also based him on Howard Hughes,
yeah,
which makes sense as well of that era and that time. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah,
yep. And we didn't say everybody involved in this.
Oh no, we didn't. I apologize on that.
Stan Lee was the plot creator, and then
and you said Kirby did a little bit of art on here, or
that was according to Wikipedia.
Okay,
so Stan Lee did the plot. Larry Leiber did the script.
Okay.
Don Heck did the art for this issue.
Okay.
And where it's his first appearance, I guess maybe Jack Kirby helped Stan Lee design it. Because they credit him, and that's the only thing I could...
Yeah, Leiber was one that I read that he would kind of part out the writing credits and stuff like, or the writing to other writers and stuff on the characters like that. And it was his decision to start pulling them out of the Avengers because it got so difficult to kind of do the stories or whatever like that. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, Leiber was the one that started deciding, hey, I'm going to pull them out of the Avengers here and there, you know.
Well, if only he's seen how many books Wolverine is in.
Yeah, right. I know, exactly.
He would have a conniption.
Exactly, man. I know, right? But yeah, I loved it, man.
It's good. I mean, what I would say about it is it's dated, obviously, because it's...
Yeah, but I don't think it hurts it, though. I mean, there's not really that much. There's not really nothing. Honestly, I don't think there's anything in there to take offense to.
Well, no, it ain't. Well, I mean...
That's my opinion.
And he's quarter Asian, so you all have to listen to him.
You damn right I am. That's really truthful. I am. I'm Japanese. That's truthful.
But I will say, as far as like the writing style, like we talked about in... the first X-Men issue.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if that turns you off, you're going to have a hard time with this as well.
I mean, the only thing I think it would turn you... I mean, what do they say? Reds?
No, I just mean as far as the writing style. Like reading it.
I don't know. I don't know if it would or not.
Because it's not like modern comics where it's like...
Maybe.
This is written towards kids.
Yeah, but it's still. I didn't feel like I was being talked down to, though.
No, but
there was enough intelligence to the writing. I thought, though.
It's intelligent.
Yeah,
but it's still written like a 1960s comic.
Yeah,
so
definitely pro-war.
definitely
pro-war. I get that. You know.
Hey, you guys are going to like them. Stanley said so. Other than that, yeah, it's a great origin story, and it's pretty close to the films. I mean, they just kind of retcon Vietnam to Afghanistan, insert whatever else here.
Now this is a reprint, Sean. So how much would this run people if they wanted to find it?
All right, if you want a reprint, let's see. The one I got will run you about $8.
Ain't bad.
And then if you want the actual thing, it's going to run you about anywhere from $4,000 to say 20.
That is bad. so go for the reprint, folks. Definitely go for the reprint. Yeah. And it's beautiful. It's on glossy paper. The colors pop at you. Yeah, it looks amazing. I might pick me up a reprint. It's really cool. I like it. Now, this is one of a few reprints that you grabbed, didn't you? Did you not? You got the Tales of the Spider-Man one too, did you not?
Yeah, Amazing Fantasy.
Amazing Fantasy, excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, I picked up anytime they did a reprint on a key issue, I went ahead and picked them up.
So yeah, definitely get the reprint on this, guys. If you guys are Iron Man fans of any era, whether it was Robert Downey's movies or anything before that or anything now, this is a must to add to your collection, I think. Very first appearance of Iron Man.
Since we didn't get a question this week, how do you feel about retcons in general?
I don't really mind them that much. I guess as long as they don't go too crazy with it. I get, like, changing the Vietnam War. And apparently, before the more modern interpretation, it could have changed again. I don't know. But by 2008, the film, it was Afghanistan.
Yeah.
And I get that, because that was kind of what we were dealing with at the time.
Makes sense. It still applies, like all the same stuff.
I read, I don't know how long after this, but it had got retconned once before from the Vietnam War to a fictitious war. I forget the name of it, but it was a fictitious war. That doesn't bother me, because I understand that, because as time moves on, things happen in the world, and you're going to try to get it to fit that moment in time.
Make it more relatable to the moment.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And so I understand. So, yeah, the 2008 film, Tony was still the munitions guy, still the warmonger, as the word is used. And it just happened to be Afghanistan, because, again, that was the moment that we were dealing with. The word 1962, December of 62, early 63, we were in the early couple of years of Vietnam War, so I understand why that would be the conflict that Tony would be supplying weapons to for.
Yep.
So stuff like that doesn't bother me. I don't know if I really say anything about retcons would really bother me. I guess it just depends on how drastic they try to change something. And I don't think really like his origin really got changed, because even in the 2008 film, he's shrapnel from an explosion. Mm-hmm. He's kidnapped by the enemies to make them weapons. Jensen is introduced. And they just changed the nationalities of the characters.
Yeah.
Other than that, the basic origin plot is still the same. He makes an Iron Man suit. He escapes. Jensen unfortunately passes away trying to help him escape, as he did here in the original comic book. So that, yeah, stuff like that doesn't bother me. I think if they went all weird, wacko, crazy on the origin, maybe it would bug me a little bit. But stuff like changing the nationalities and stuff like that, but basically keeping the core story of the origin like that doesn't bother me at all. I don't think. To me, it doesn't.
Yeah.
What about you?
I would agree. At least in this case, it's almost like it's as close as you're going to get.
Yeah. It's basically a one for one. It just, again, they just changed nationalities as time went on. That I know of, that's all they did.
I think the only one that's really bothered me in since I've started reading comics, was the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver thing.
I would see. You'd have to tell me about that one. I don't know. I'm not familiar with it.
Well, before Disney bought Fox, Fox owned all the X-Men characters.
Yep.
Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch were an exception to the rule, because both companies could use the characters.
That's why they were called Miracles in Age of Ultron movies.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in the comics, they were Magneto's kids.
I remember that, yeah.
Okay, well, right after that movie came out, they changed the comics to where they weren't.
Okay.
And that still bugs me.
Didn't they try to reference that Pietro was his child in one of the First Class movies?
Yeah, they can do that in X-Men, but they couldn't do it in the Disney ones.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
So that still bugs me.
I think I like the idea of them being his children.
Yeah.
I like that idea.
It gives them more substance to me.
Because it was also in the animated series, too, was it not?
I don't recall.
What was the female was a character? Was it Magda, I think, or something like that was the name of the character? Magna? Something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
It was the mother.
I forgot about that,
It was either the mother or was someone that took care of them after maybe the mother passed or something. I don't remember now. But, yeah, for that, yeah, that would, but, yeah, I think I definitely would prefer them to be his children.
Yeah.
It gives them more depth if something happens between them, or, you know, or if they have to fight against him, it makes it more difficult for them to, you know, it's like, well, he's our dad, even though he is Magneto. Mm-hmm. You know, maybe he is right, maybe he's wrong. But now if they're just two other mutants fighting him, it's like that kind of takes a little suspense out of it, in my opinion. So I agree with you on that one. That bugs me too. Yeah,
it gives it more.
I forgot about that.
A dramatic spin to it.
It does.
And better character development as well.
I agree. It does, for sure. Well, you know, now, real quick, in the House of M stuff, am I thinking that right? When Scarlet got rid of the mutants, was that House of M, or was that something else? Okay. Mm-hmm. Were they still his children?
Yep.
Okay, because he's the one that whispers, basically kind of gets in her ear, right? Or no, Pietro gets in her ear.
Pietro, yeah.
But is it Magneto that gets into Pietro's ear and then he gets into hers, maybe?
No, he didn't want anything to do with it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember if they were still his children at that moment or not.
They were.
Okay.
Yeah, that didn't change till right after Ultron came out.
Right after Ultron came out.
House of M was like 2003. Something like that.
Yeah, you let me borrow it, but I can't remember.
We're going to cover it one day.
Dude, I loved it. I think I've got the Spider-Man book somewhere, but Lord knows if I could find it. I love what they did with the Spider-Man aspect of that, for sure.
All right. That's for you, Vampiro. we're going to talk about House Film every single podcast. Because we did ask on the Discord.
We did.
What was your first experience with comic books characters?
Yeah, like your first exposure to the comic book characters. Yeah.
And there was some cool answers. What was yours?
My earliest memory of comic book characters would have been the Super Friends cartoon that was on in the 80s. That would be my earliest experience that I personally can remember. I'm sure I may have watched other cartoons or might have got some toys or comics or something, but that's the earliest thing I can think of would be in that Super Friends cartoon, which come out in the 70s. I wasn't born until 1980, so I didn't get to watch like the earlier stuff unless it was reruns, but my earliest experience that I can think of off the top of my head would have been that. What about you?
I've been trying to think. I'm guessing it probably would have been Christopher Reeve's Superman, but I don't remember that.
Okay.
The first thing I remember is going to see the 89 Batman film.
I remember going and watching that, yeah.
And yeah, I would say one of those two.
I was late to the party on the Christopher Reeve movie. I don't know when I would have watched that. It probably would have been in the 90s. I'd have been a teenager before I ever watched. I knew of it, but I think it'd been in the 90s before I ever watched it. I was a teenager probably when I first watched it. It was probably on television, more than likely. Because the last one was what, 87?
I believe so. The one
so
with
I'd have been 7
Nuclear Man?
Yeah. So I'd have been 7 years old, roughly, 6, 7 years old. So yeah, it had been in the 90s probably. In which since then I've bought the Blu-ray box set, so I own the films. And I love those movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be the earliest thing I could think of, besides the 89 Batman movie, would have probably been the Super Friends cartoon, more than likely. As big of an animation nut as I am, that's more than likely what it would have been, I'd say.
All right. Speaking of people talking to us, if you want to, we've got that fancy Discord. There's always a link on wherever you stream this.
Yes.
And we've got a email, which is geekswithbeardspod@gmail.com. We've got an Instagram. We've got a Facebook.
So many options. There's no reason you can't say hi.
Just tell us how much we're wrong. Tell us how much we suck. Give us a good review.
Yeah, 5 stars, please.
5 stars.
Wherever you listen, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're able to do 5 stars, and leave a review. Type in something, and let us know what you thought about a particular episode or just overall the podcast. Let us know what you think about it.
And if you got a request, send them on through. We'll see what we can do.
We'll do our best to get to some requests. No guarantees, but we'll try for sure, because we've got a lot of stuff, already kind of in our brains thinking as it is goes, but we would definitely consider it for sure. Definitely consider it for sure. Real quick before we wrap up, as you mentioned your video game podcast, I want to shout out real quick to a movie review podcast that I listen to. Give Me Back My Action and Give Me Back My Horror Movie podcast. Charlie, Anna, Nate, and Pete, they just celebrated their 4-year anniversary podcasting. And if anybody out there that listens to us, if you guys are interested in horror movies or action movies, mostly older VHS era, some are obscure, some are well known. Definitely give them a check. Check them out for sure. They're on all major podcast platforms. They got social media as well. So I just want to give them a shout out as well, because they're great podcasts, great people, and congratulations on 4 years. Hopefully we'll be doing for maybe for 4 years. Hopefully. So
that'd be awesome.
Thought I want to give them a shout real quick because they're really cool people. I really like those guys.
All right. So what was the name of that podcast?
Give Me Back My Action and Give Me Back My Horror Movie.
All right. Check those out. Check out Retrovaniacs.
Definitely.
If you like any kind of retro games, you're going to like it. Plus, you can find out about Seaman Grandpa. That's a reason to go listen.
Okay. For sure. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this episode up. Our next episode, we're going to dive back into the world of the Transformers. This is a juicy one, I think. It's from 2019, so it's a little recent. From IDW once again, and it's Transformers 84, and it's the Zero issue. And this is a prequel story that IDW came up with original comic book writers from the Marvel days, Simon Furman, and artist, I'll kill this name, Guido. I'm probably wrong on that one. They're original writer and artist from the original Marvel Comics run, and it's a prequel to the #1 issue of Transformers Marvel comic book from 1984. This story leads into why the comic started, why they come to Earth, and it's juicy. It makes you rethink what you think about some characters in the Transformers world. And it also leads into a four-part miniseries called Transformers 84 Truth and Lies. We're probably not going to cover that in the same episode, but we definitely will cover that at one point. But yeah, I think you'll like this one, man. This is no crossover. This is no goofiness. This is some straight, serious Transformers. And it's got some juicy to it. So I think you'll enjoy that, and I hope you all enjoy that. And until next time, I'm Dan. This is Sean, and this has been the Geeks with Beards podcast, and we will see you on Cybertron. Goodbye, everybody.
Geeks with beards. Geeks with beards. Look who's here. Geeks with beards. No need to fear. We're right here. We got beards. So listen clear. Geeks with beards. Geeks with beards. Look who's here. Geeks with beards. No need to fear. We're right here. I'm in your ear. So listen clear. No one else doing it like us. Also, we just might cuss. Just cause. No, we ain't playing. And we're just saying. And we're making a podcast. It's cool.